You know, some songs, they aren't just songs, are they? They're more like entire worlds you can step into. And today, we're going to do just that. We're diving deep into an absolute masterpiece, Bob Dylan's Blind Willie McTell. We're going to walk through this incredible world he builds, line by line, and really try to figure out what gives it such a haunting, unforgettable power. So the whole song, and I mean the entire thing, is built around this one simple repeating line. It's the anchor, right? It's the central idea. Now, on the surface, it just sounds like he's praising an old blues legend. But as Dylan starts to build this world around it, this line just transforms into something way deeper, something almost mystical. It becomes this inevitable truth. And that's the real question we have to ask ourselves, isn't it? What kind of world needs a blues like that? See, the song isn't really about Blind Willie McTell, the person. It's more like his name is a key that unlocks this vision of a world that is so broken, just so steeped in sorrow, that only a voice as powerful as his could ever hope to express its pain. So if we're going to understand that refrain, we first have to understand the world he's painting for us. All right, first up, the condemned land. So let's start where Dylan starts, with the landscape itself. Before we meet a single person, he paints this incredible, vivid picture of the stage where this whole drama is going to unfold. And it is a condemned land. Wow. The song just throws you right in with this incredibly stark image of judgment, an arrow on a doorpost. I mean, that's a direct callback to the Passover story, right? A sign of damnation. And the scale here is just epic right from the get-go. He's stretching this vision all the way from a real place, New Orleans, to a mythical, spiritual place, New Jerusalem. So what does all this mean? It tells us we're not just in some physical location on a map. No. We're in a spiritual and historical landscape. This is a land that's been marked for judgment, a place of deep suffering, where many martyrs fell. The tone for this huge, sprawling tragedy is set right here in the very first line. And then, right after painting this incredibly desolate picture, boom, he brings us right back to that refrain. It's like he's saying, see this place? See this condemned land? This is why a bluesman like Blind Willie McTell has to exist. The landscape itself is crying out for this song. Okay, section 2, Ghosts of American History. So we've seen the land. Now it's time to meet the people who live there. But here's the thing. They're not really living people. They feel more like ghosts from America's past, just these spectral figures watching over everything. You really get this deep sense of a quiet aftermath in these lines. They were taking down the tents. What does that mean? Maybe a circus has packed up and left, or maybe it's an army camp being dismantled after a battle. And the only one watching this silent departure? A hoot owl. You know, that classic symbol of lonely wisdom, and maybe even a warning of death. I mean, the imagery here is just so ghostly, right? You've got the owl, the barren trees, and then he gives us these charcoal gypsy maidens. He doesn't describe them much. They're just these shadowy figures who can strut their feathers well. It's like they're the survivors, the witnesses who are left behind after the main event has already passed. And then the camera kind of shifts to these more concrete figures. But even they feel like characters from a dusty old photograph, don't they? A woman, a handsome man dressed like a southern squire, and he's got bootlegged whiskey in his hand. It's a perfect snapshot of the old, kind of decadent and deeply troubled American South. And this is where Dylan does something brilliant. He shows us both sides of this history. You've got the survivors, like the squire with his illegal whiskey, and he puts them right next to the ones who died in the battle. He's basically placing the living ghosts right beside the actual dead, and it completely blurs the line between them. And there it is again, the refrain. After he's piled on all these images of historical ghosts, from that decadent squire to the fallen soldiers, the need for a voice like McTell's just feels even more urgent. I mean, who else could possibly sing for both the living and the dead? All right, part 3, a crisis of spirit. So let's recap. We have a condemned land, and it's populated by ghosts. Now, in this final part of the song's vision, the narrator kind of pulls the camera back to give us the diagnosis. What's the root cause of all this decay? The final verse starts with this line. Well, God is in his heaven. It sounds simple, almost comforting, right? Like a statement of faith. It just creates this little moment of stillness, and it's totally setting us up for the gut punch that comes next. And we all want what's his, but power and greed and corruptible seed seem to be all that there is. And then he says, I'm gazing out the window of the St. James Hotel. And there it is. The narrator, who we now realize is a modern person just looking out a hotel window, he delivers the final verdict. God might be up in heaven, but down here on earth our worst instincts, power, greed, that corruptible seed, they've completely taken over. It is a profound statement of spiritual crisis. So what this really breaks down to is a fundamental disconnect. A divine order might exist somewhere up there, but down here, humanity is just trapped in this endless cycle of earthly corruption. The narrator isn't just seeing ghosts from the past anymore, he's seeing the timeless spiritual sickness that created them in the first place. And so, for the very last time, we hear the refrain. But this time, man, it carries the full weight of everything we've just seen. The condemned land, all those historical ghosts, and that devastating spiritual diagnosis. At this point, it feels like the only possible response to a world so completely saturated with sorrow. It's the final, irrefutable truth of the song. But you know what? The story of Blind Willie McTell doesn't just stop with the lyrics. The journey of the actual song is, in itself, pretty fascinating. For a song this monumental, its path to the public was long and very, very strange. Just think about this timeline for a second. Dylan writes and records what is arguably a masterpiece in 1983, and then he just puts it on a shelf. It doesn't get an official release for 8 whole years, and it takes a full 14 years before he ever plays it live for an audience. This was, quite literally, a masterpiece in hiding. But look at this. Since that first live performance back in '97, it's been played live well over 250 times. It's just incredible proof that a song, once you finally let it out of the vault, can take on a life of its very own. It became this vital, enduring part of his legacy, all on its own terms. So now, when we hear this line again, it just has this whole other layer of meaning, doesn't it? It's not just the conclusion to the world inside the song anymore. It's also a testament to a kind of art that's so powerful, so timeless that you just can't keep it silent forever. Eventually, its truth is going to find its audience. And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. At its heart, Blind Willie McTell is a song about survival, the ghosts who survived, the memory of those who didn't. And in a weird way, the song's own story mirrors that theme. It's a survivor too. So it makes you wonder, what is that thing, that spark in a piece of art, that gives it a life of its own and allows it to endure, to outlive its own quiet birth and demand that we listen?